Hello everybody, welcome to Zyber Organics channel. My name is Tunane. I'm the brand owner and founder of Zyber Organics, where I sell cosmetics, candles, also teach you DIY cosmetics on this channel. Hello, welcome. So today we are going to make all kinds of serums. I'm not just going to show you actually how to do this or that. I'm actually going to show you the structure of it so that you can actually play around with the ingredients that you might have, you want to use, but you don't know how to use them. So we're going to make all three kinds of serums. That includes just water only serums, that will be like a gel like. Then you have oil serums, just going to be just oil based serums, and you're going to have combination of both water and oil. Say for example you have both water and oil based ingredients that you want to incorporate and you want to use both of them and you may not know how to, so I'm going to show you how to do all those three in today's video. And if you stay a little bit long towards at the end, I'm also going to give you some tips of, for example, how to improve the texture, the things that you should look out for, like the pH and compatible ingredients, and some other few tips where you can actually, while you're making these serums, you can actually look out these things and then maybe you want to incorporate them yourself. So anyway, without further ado, let's start with the basic water-based serum. As the name suggests, this is going to be an oil-free, just water-based formulation. The structure starts with selecting your gum. So you want to keep, because this is going to be a serum formula, you want to keep your gum quite relatively small amounts. So ideally from 0.5 to 2%, which based on the gum you choose. So there are a lot of gums alternatives. So you have xanthan gum, tara gum, got silly gel, there are lots of gums and you can try, and whatever the gum you have, most commonly you will have xanthan gum because it's the most available, cheapest gum out there. So if you're using just xanthan gum, ideally between 0.2 to 0.5 is the ideal structure to just get a nice gel form. So start with the gum, 0.2 to 0.5. Then select your actives, so whatever the actives are going to use. Are you going to use niacinamide? Are you going to use hyaluronic acid? So are you going to use some kind of AHAs or salicylic acid, BHA? So select your actives and maximum 10%. Obviously, there are exceptions. You can go, some formulations can go up to 15%, but if you start with a simple structure, first go up to 10%. 2% to 10% is ideal for any sort of actives. Next, select your extracts. So whatever the extracts you want to choose, like cactus extract, cucumber extract, aloe juice extract, whatever you want to choose, green tea extract, or sort of like coffee extract, whatever you want to use, just put these together and maximum put it 10% as well. Ideally 5 to 10% is really good for any kind of water-based formulation. Next, you have your humectant. Humectant is ideally between 3% to 10%. If you're using glycerin, you don't want to put too much because glycerin can make it really quite tacky. So if you have like things like propanediol, pentylene glycol, propylene glycols, butylene glycol, so many humectants out there. So the easiest one, again, you want to use glycerin. Ideally 5 to 7% is good for glycerin. Any others, we may go a little bit higher. For example, propanediol is really good. It's not doesn't have that tackiness and it has a really good solvent ability. So you might want to increase it to maybe 10% of propanediol. So 3% to 10% is ideal range for humectants. Lastly, you need your preservative to keep microbes and mold growing on your formulation. So ideally from 0.8 to 2% is good for preservative. Again, it depends what you're using. And because it's a water-based formulation, you need to make sure the preservative you're using is water-soluble preservative. Normally you see from my previous videos, I'm using preservative eco. It is actually water-soluble, but it has a quite broad range. You might be using Optifen, or you might be using Euxil, so it's quite a preservatives out there. So you can choose whatever the formulation is, and also it depends on the pH range. So when you measure your pH, some preservatives needs a good between 4.5 to 5.5 pH range, so you need to be careful about it. If you're using a broad range preservative like preservative Ego, which goes from 3 to 8, you don't need to worry about it that much. So, and the rest of it, obviously you put these first, and at the end of it you got your whatever is left of the amount, you got water. Unless you also want to use some water alternatives. Maybe you want to use some hydrosol, like a floral water. Maybe you want to use some rose water, or you want to use some cucumber hydrosol, or aloe vera juice, or things like that. So you need to also consider that amount as a water and water alternatives. And whatever is left is your water amount, and then here's your formulation. And here's a sample of hyaluronic acid gel with a bit of a green tea extract. So let's do it. Let's start adding 0.2 hyaluronic acid. Then xanthan gum, 0.1 xanthan gum. We got 5 grams of glycerin. Then we disperse this. If you don't know how to do this, I have a hyaluronic acid video where I show all these details. The link is over there in the above. So let's just disperse this now. 3 grams green tea. I'm gonna add some witch hazel, which is 5 grams. 0.8, add the preservative. Some blue coloring, 5%. And lastly, let's add the rest of the water, 80.9. Okay, so let's give it a good mix. Let's check the pH. It's 5.7, so it's all good. And then here's a nice blue colored hyaluronic acid gel serum. So let's empty this up. So this is how it looks. So this is blue hyaluronic 2% hyaluronic acid gel serum. So let's quickly check the texture. The full texture obviously be ready next day, but I'm just showing you as a demonstration. So as you can see, it's not too thick, it's a really nice water light serum. So this is how you make water-based gel serums. There's no oil in this formula. All you need to be careful about your thickener, which is the gum in this case. So if you want to make it a little bit more viscous, you can increase the gum. If you don't want to make it too viscous, too thick, basically, you can reduce the gum ratio. And any other kind of actives you can add, and you can play around with this. Structure of water gel, and you can create yourself any sort of like niacinamide serum, water vitamin C serum. If you want to add some caffeine in it, you can make a nice caffeine gel serums, and so on. You can add peptides. There's no limits to it, but this is the general structure if you want to make a nice smooth gel serum, basically. Towards the end, I will also give you some extra information and tips and tricks where you need to be careful about when you're adding some kind of acids and pH ratios. But that will be it right at the end. Right now, let's move on to the second type of serums, which are the oil-based serums. They're quite easily made as well. So there's no water in this case. So this is waterless oil serums. What you need to do here is basically look out for putting the oils together. My advice and how the structure is actually you need to put 20 to 30% of medium oils such as jojoba, grapeseed, coconut oil, squalane. These are sort of medium weight oils. They're not too greasy, they're not too light, but they're not too greasy either. So you can use around these 20 to 30%. And you need to add 10 to 20% lighter oils. So this could be absinthe oil. You can use a lot of emollients, but you need to keep them quite light. This is because you need to balance the ratio of the oils. If you just add type, for example, just let's say jojoba oil, the jojoba oil is very good actually, but you might not like the greasiness and the shininess that comes from the oils. So what you need to do here is you need to balance the heavy oils, the medium and the light oils all together, so that you will have a nice skin feel without feeling too greasy. That's the aim, the thing that you need to look out in oil serums. And 5 to 10% you can add your oil-based extracts, and also 5 to 10% you can add your actives in it. So for example, you can add vitamin C oil derived version, ascorbyl tetraisoprotamylate, which you might have seen in my previous videos. You can add other oils. You can add bakuchiol, you can add retinol, you can add also oil soluble peptides, you can add oil soluble other actives in it, but don't go too much, obviously, especially when it comes to retinol and bakuchiol. Those are ideally 1 to 2%. Don't go crazy on those ones. Don't add too much on those. And they're also very expensive. You don't want to waste them. And lastly, you will need a vitamin E for the structure of the oil serums. You need the vitamin E as an antioxidant, or you can also use some resins like rosemary antioxidant and vitamin E, which is tocopherol. You need these to keep the oils not going from basically rancid, which means, you know, you don't want them to get oxidized, which is the last thing you want. They got really bad smell, and you don't want them to go this color change, you know, change their colors and things like that. So ideally 0.5 to 2% is really good to keep the oils fresh and then not going from rancid. So just to reiterate, you got 20 to 30% medium oils, then you got 10 to 20% light oils, and then you got 5 to 10% heavy oils like argan oil, tamarind oil. These are quite high, very heavy oils. So you don't want to put them too much so that you don't feel like heavy on your, when you put it on your face, you don't want to feel too greasy basically. So that's the structure of the oil-based serums, and here's a simple formula to do facial oil serum. Let me show you. Grapeseed oil, so 20 gram. Adding 20 jojoba oil. 10 gram squalene. Carrot extract, so this is a carbon dioxide extract. You can also add these. So we're gonna add 2 gram of carrot. Vitamin E. Couple triglyceride, and let's mix this. As you can see, it's become a nice amber color facial oil. So let's bottle this up. Facial oil serum. Let's just check the texture as well. And it's not greasy, it's not, and it's already absorbed. There's no shininess, so it's a bit dark, but like it's really nothing else left here, as you can see. And that's how you do facial oil serums. You can also use this structure if you want to make body oils. It still works. Body oils is generally, it's much better to use plant-based oils, but obviously it depends. Adding some kind of emollients as well, it helps reducing the grease. There's one thing that I forgot to mention. If you, with the facial oils and the body oils, you can using value, if you want to use this structure, there's one little thing that I forgot to mention, which is the fragrance bit. You can also add some essential oils. Don't add too much essential oils. You know, with the essential oils, there's a fragrance limit and things like that. But you can add with up to 1% essential oils, maybe some of essential oils. Maybe you want to add some rose, or you want to add some for example geranium, or you can add some bergamot, grapefruit, things like that. But just total, don't go more than 1% ideally if you want to add some kind of scent to the body oil or the facial oil that you're going to do while using this structure. It really, some people doesn't like scent, but people like really nice scents like jasmine or rose or things like that. You can add it. Last bit, now we come to combining this, the water part and the oil part, which means emulsifying. So with the emulsifications, you don't need to use too much emulsifiers for serums. As you know, serums has to be quite low viscous products. So that means you don't want to, they're not creams, they're not butters, they're not sort of like balms. So you have to keep the serums very, very low viscous. Because of this, the emulsifiers that we're going to use needs to be between like 1% to maximum 4%, which is even that's too much. It depends, but you can, it is the ideal. So here's the structure for doing a lotion-like, basically emulsifying serums. Again, the actives are the same. You can go up to 10%, maybe a little bit higher with the actives. Same with the extract, up to 5%. And you can also have now the oil part. So you can ideally, if you don't like greasy serums or things like that, reduce the greasiness part. So maybe like 15%, 10% is ideal for serums, adding a little bit of oil. So if you have like oil soluble extracts, or maybe if you want to add some retinol, or if you want to add some other active ingredients. So that's the oily part that helps you with it. So if you wanted to make, for example, incorporate an niacinamide and a retinol together, this is the way to do it. So you can't just, because niacinamide is water-based and retinol is oil-based, so you need to combine them together. You need to use an emulsifier. You also need to choose to keep things stable. So obviously, you need to add your gum. So again, it goes back to the water gel serums is 0.1 to 0.4 0.4 with the xanthan gum, and anything else you maybe go up to 1%. Then you got your actives, which was mentioned. You got your extracts. You need your preservative as usual. You can also add your fragrance if you want to at the end. You can add some little bit of like bergamot or something like that, or jasmine, just to give that. You can also add a bit of extra oil. So if you're using some active ingredients, like low amount ingredients like retinol or maybe bakuchiol, you can add some other ingredients like beautiful oils like rosehip, or you can maybe add some coloring to it, like maybe add some tamarind oil, just give that nice green color. And that's it. So this is the structure of the lotion-like serum. So if you have both of them. So here's a nice 5% niacinamide and 1% bakuchiol lotion-like serum formula. And let's do it. Okay, so because this is an emulsion, we're gonna make these water side and the oil side separately. So let's start with the water side. Let's start with the niacinamide. So let's add 5 gram niacinamide. Ethylene glycol, which is 5 gram, the xanthan gum 0.4, and next let's add the preservative. So I'm using Iskagar, the chamomile extract. Add the 1 gram bakuchiol. Let's add 1 gram vitamin E. Because this is going to be a cold process formula, I'm just using a cold processable emulsifier. And mix this all. I can, because I don't need to heat it, I can add my fragrance as well. So I'm adding jasmine. Okay, now I can add this to my oil. I'll into water, and then let's homogenize it. After the homogenization, it becomes a nice milky, very low viscous serum. So let's bottle it up. Okay, as you can see, it's a nice lotion-like serum. As you can see here, and it just spreads nicely, and there's nothing left. And it smells jasmine-y as well, because we've got a lot of jasmine. So let me just show you again. It's very, very nice, very creamy. So this is how you can incorporate both water and the oil-soluble ingredients together to make a nice lotion-like serum. So that was the lotion-like serums, and using the same structure that I showed, we made a really nice 5% niacinamide and bakuchiol lotion-like serum that you can use daily in the evening or in the night. So, but now, here we have some, we come to the point where there's some couple of tips and tricks that you need to look into while making all these serums. So this is for the water only gel-like serums. The first thing you need to look is, because it's so much just water included, there are going to be too many ions in the water, so which may cause discoloration in the long term. It may cause stability issues. So it's better to add some chelating agent, which is definitely, it's not much. There are a couple of chelating agents that you can add. They're easy to obtain. So the point of adding a chelating agent is stop these metal ions or any other kind of discoloration happening for the serum. So it's good to add some chelating agent for water-based and also for the lotion-like serum as well. It helps from any kind of discoloration. The second thing is pH. So pH is very important when it comes to especially what kind of active ingredients you're gonna use. If you're using, for example, high pH active ingredients like niacinamide, vitamin C is also quite high. Sometimes some of them, for example, ascorbate glucoside is quite high. It's around 6 pH. and any other ingredients. So when you're adding high pH ingredients, but you also want to add low pH ingredients like acid, AHA acid, malic acid, I don't know, some kind of lactic acid, and salicylic acid, BHAs, you can't add those two together. It's not going to go well together, because the reason is you have completely two ingredients that are other ends of the spectrum, pH spectrum, and you're not gonna have an effective acid while you have a really gonna cause destabilization in the pH. So be careful when you're adding the actives. Make sure they are actually survive, or they are actually compatible in that pH range that you're going to need. So that's another one. Another thing is that you need to also make sure, especially for the oils, is actually good to add some good emollients. The reason is, if you just use plant oils, it's gonna feel very greasy. So you need to look out for adding very light oils or light emollients, such as cocoa caplay is one of them. Or you can also add hemisqualane. These are quite a dry oil, caplay triglyceride, isomyl laurate, EcoSilk. These kind of emollients, very light emollients, it should be the really major of the formula, so that you don't get that greasiness for the oils. You can also do this in the lotion like serum. If you don't like these emollients also help with reducing the soaping effect, if there's any soaping effect that you might experiencing based on the emulsifier that you're using. But also, they also increase the light and the texture of the emulsifier, which is really helpful. Yes, so these are the main tips, especially at the pH, and look at the active ingredients that you're using. Check them if they're compatible in the pH range or not. So these are my tips and tricks for when it comes to serums. You need to do a lot of trial and error as well. So I'm become so accustomed of doing them. I can actually do very quickly. I actually come up with this formula straight away. I was just thinking in an hour. I just come up with them. So basically, the more you do it, to practice it, you become really good at it. So as with everything, first of all, read your active ingredients. Make sure they are compatible. Make sure they're also compatible with the pH range, compatible with each other. And yes, just try not to use too much heavy oils if you want to have a really nice facial oil serum. And if you want to use emulsifiers, just make sure, especially if you're using wax emulsifiers such as Montana 202, Vegetal, or Oliva 1000, don't use them too much. Try to stick around 3% max, because the more you add it, it becomes creamier, so it becomes low viscous. So you don't want that to happen. So you want to keep it to really sort of 2%, maybe 3% max, to achieve that nice low viscous texture for the serums. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And from now on, I've noticed that I'm getting requests for kojic acid. I'm aware of it. I actually got it a couple of weeks ago. I got kojic acid dipalmitate. So hopefully I'm going to do a kojic acid serum, maybe also cream as well. I'm just a little bit too much tired of doing serums all the time. I know people love serums, but I might start doing the creams now, because I've been actually thinking of doing a cream sort of formulations. I think a lot of people want to know how to do creams very easily. People are scared of doing emulsions, I know, but it's not as scared as you think. So yes, and also I'm going to do an azelaic acid, a cream or something else, but watch that space. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and until next time, see you later. Take care, bye!